All right.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. We're back. We're back for episode 1.
It's been such a long time since the trailer.
Roughly 24 hours since we recorded the trailer, with thoughts of spending a few days, getting our thoughts together and seeing what was going to happen with the podcast. But here we are, 24 hours on, recording episode 1. Got a structure.
Well, sort of.
Ish.
I made a list.
We made a list.
Mm.
Lists are good. Lists are our friend. The first thing we want to say really is that it's been really great to have such a nice response to the trailer, and it's kind of led into what our first hyperfocus of the week is going to be, or has been, because we've been talking about doing this podcast for months.
Yes.
And then I went to a webinar last Wednesday, and then it had to happen right this second. Well, we realised, didn't we, that it was Autism Awareness Month, and it probably works.
Yes, but equally, once the idea was fully formed,
yeah,
it wasn't a question of, at some point, it was a question of not a lot else exists in life. That's a bit extreme, but yeah, it needs to be a thing like now, because if it's not a thing now, then it won't be a thing.
The podcast just became our thing. That took over all other things. So we came up with the name last week, and then we had a little meeting, didn't we, last Thursday?
Yeah, where did we come up with the name, Emma?
Oh, I was just getting... I mean, all of my ideas come generally in the shower, but I had turned the shower on but not quite gotten into the shower. So I was able, because Claire's lovely husband had said we should just call it Tism. And I was thinking, oh, well, no, because it's about how we are, why we are like we are. And then I'd turned the shower on and the extractor fan was on, and I was just about to step into the shower. And then that'll be the Tism. So I just legged it back into my bedroom to text Claire and tell her that was my idea. And it went down well, didn't it?
I'm just glad I'm glad you've clarified that, because I said, where did we have the idea, and you said in the shower, and it sounded like we were in the shower together thinking about podcasts, as we do.
Having a chat. Just to clarify, we live at opposite sides of the Pennines, and showering together is thus not possible.
And even if it were, I
don't think we would we? No,
we just wouldn't. It's not that sort of friendship.
No, it isn't that kind of friendship. We were talking earlier about overshares, and here we are. Oh, we don't have any overshares this week.
Worrying that we wouldn't have an overshare of the week. There was no need for that.
No need to worry. No. So I had the idea. I ran across my hall into my bedroom, messaged Claire, and then I went and got in the shower and carried on with my business. That sounds dodgy, is it? Oh, well, doesn't it? Never mind. We're going to have to edit that.
Oh, no, I like it, carried on with my business.
So yeah, we had the idea for the name, and then we had a meeting about it, didn't we? And now, a week later, I mean, we didn't expect the feedback that we've had. I mean, we didn't expect it to be as easy to upload a podcast as it was.
No.
Then we uploaded the podcast, and I wanted to hide under the table.
Yes.
In life, when something exciting happens, I do like to sit. Well, I don't like to sit under the table. It's just a place that draws me in.
However, you stop yourself, because otherwise that would have been a really awkward Zoom call.
I was just gripping the edge of the table rather than sitting under the table. I have in the past with my VA. I can't remember what happened. Something happened in the middle of a call, and I just like did this. And then I got from my VA, I got, Emma, are you under the table? Yeah, I am, yeah. Never mind. But yeah, so we hyper-focused on the podcast. And we're very grateful that we're here. And it seems to have gone down all right. So hopefully this episode will be reasonably interesting as a result.
And not too much pressure to make people laugh. If that happens, then it happens, but if not, we're really sorry, and we'll try and be more entertaining in future. Please listen to episode 2.
Yeah, episode
Thanks.
2 will be, the hyperfocus will be talking about my top 40 at 40.
Yes.
You know, that's the hyperfocus that I had before this hyperfocus, that this hyperfocus took over from.
Spoilers. No. But thank you very much for everybody's feedback so far, and it sort of made us feel like we were a little bit on the right track when we didn't really know what we're doing, and we still don't really know what we're doing, but give us feedback if you're listening, and we'll get there.
We've had a few issues with a couple of podcast providers. I had a very long phone call with somebody this morning to try and sort out where our podcast was being broadcast, because it turns out that some of the places where people like to listen to podcasts are awkward. But we managed it. I managed to not do any other work this morning and talk to them and sort it all out. And it was all fine at the end of the day. And I mean, I've helped them because they said to me this problem was resolved last month. And I said, well, I'll tell you a secret. Not resolved. Promise you, we've spent hours on this, just refreshing the page, and it's not resolved. But it might be resolved next week, and then the whole world can thank me, can't they? For my
Until
effort.
something else goes wrong. But I just thought it was funny how, like, first thing you said this morning, I'm expecting a call from this company to talk about why we can't upload the podcast there. They're going to ring me, and I'm like, of course they are. It's 8:30 in the morning. What else would you be doing then?
They rang me at 8:30. I was on the chat to them at 7. After I'd woke up a bit earlier, and I was thinking about the podcast. Obviously, why wouldn't I be? So yes, thank you. Hyperfocus podcast. Woo! Next on the agenda.
Yeah.
We need to maybe get some jingles or something, don't we? To like separate out our
The main section. The main section. What genre of music do you want it to be in?
I don't know. We could do with some beeps or something, maybe.
Beeps? What, like
electronic, like beep 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 beep.
What, the main segment rave?
Yes, yeah. That sounds epic. Well, we should do a main section rave.
I'm not sure how well that would play out if people aren't watching the video and they just like have to imagine us having a rave.
What if we just do it in silence? Don't make any noise.
But then you just have to imagine that we're dancing, which is probably better than the actual.
I don't know. I think we're brilliant at dancing.
Well, that's what I used to do during lockdown when we used to have Zoom parties. I just used to just go off in corner and start dancing.
Can you remember when we were in that cabaret place a few years ago and they were doing the Macarena Saturday night, and I went over and kicked off, told them that they were doing.
I often think every time the Macarena comes on,
they were doing the Macarena to Wigfield.
Yes, and every time I hear Wigfield, I'm like,
no, you've got to get it right. If you're going to do something, you've got to do it right. And they were not. The lovely people of Blackpool were not doing the correct dance to the correct 90s song. And I had some drinks to drink and was under the influence of alcohol. And so I had to just go and tell them. I was very cross. I was. But never mind.
And it's not the only occasion that you've done that either.
No, I usually correct people. I correct people at weddings.
Steps concerts.
Steps concerts. You've got to do the right moves to the right song. Otherwise, it's not right, is it?
No.
And we do like to stick by the rules, do autistic people. That's another trait of the week, isn't it? We'll have to talk about that another time. Anyway, our main segment, Claire.
Yes, because yes.
We thought it might be a nice idea to do an origin story.
Like a superhero origin story.
Yeah, we could be superheroes.
Tism. Not tism, for our friendship, I suppose.
For our friendship?
Yeah.
Because talking about neurodivergent communities is important, because everybody who is neurodivergent should have a community that basically keeps them going. And before we knew what neurodivergence was, what autism, well, we would know what a stereotypical idea of what autism was by our teens, but we would never have related it to our own experience at that time by a long way. For me, I was the odd one out. I didn't really have very many friends, especially ones that I could be myself with. And it was one of my school friends that found the teletext page that we all used to write into.
Yes.
And she created a Yahoo group based around the teletext page that we all used to write into.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go up to the library before the internet was readily available. Back in
I used to go to the library as well.
did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the dim and distant days where, my parents got home broadband about a month after I moved out. When I was 18, I was very infuriated. They got Sky TV at a similar time. I was very infuriated. So I used to go up to the library and use the computers for free there to get onto the internet. But I guess the point is of that community, there's a lot of people from that community that have now either been diagnosed as neurodivergent or think they might be, or, there's not everybody, obviously, but it was a place where we could go and it didn't matter how well you could communicate because
No, it didn't really matter like what if your communications, you didn't really know what to say to people because you had entire threads full of pictures of cows or last one to post wins, and it's a social interaction without really needing to put a lot of effort in knowing the rules. Well, it's very easy to know the rules of that social interaction, isn't it?
yeah.
And even though it is just sharing a picture of a cow and then someone else says, oh, that picture of a cow's nice, that makes friends now.
Yeah, you bond over these things. After Yahoo groups, we went on to a forum and it became a big, huge deal.
Well, for us anyway, like in the grand scheme of like the world, it wasn't, but in the grand scheme of
Life changing.
social lives of probably around 200 people. How many people? A lot of people.
Probably. Yeah, I have no idea how many people were on it in the end. But yeah, and we had conversations about all sorts of things, and everyone was from different backgrounds, and it didn't really matter in that space. And all that matters was that we were all kind of looking for connection, couldn't find it in our local area that we were in. And so we found it on the internet, and now that's the norm for people to connect on the internet. But back in 2001,
It was very much stranger danger, wasn't it? And my mum's going to kill me if she's listening to this because I think my mum probably still thinks that I was going round to my mate's house when I was coming to see you. But equally, like people find they get married to people that they found on the internet now, and that's just a normal thing. And
yeah,
well, that did happen on our forum as well, didn't it?
did.
But
We've had marriages, we've had babies, we've had
we
divorces.
haven't.
We haven't, not us.
No.
No, neither of us.
My husband and your fiance are not related to that forum, which is
No, which is
not
a
something
miracle
that we,
somehow, really.
thought would.
I had 4 boyfriends from that forum. Yeah, I think.
Mm.
Because it made the foundation of my life. Before I joined that, I never would have thought that anyone would ever like me in that way. It was very, very difficult for me to even conceive of the idea that somebody would be interested in me. And then not long after it was set up, then that happened. And a lot of my life lessons came through that community. And because they were coming from there, it felt a lot easier than I ever thought it would, really.
You've already got that shared basis of connection with people, haven't you? So sort of done the legwork of a friendship without all the awful, not I don't want to say awful, but all the scary parts that we find scary and we now know why.
And
you sort of felt like you already knew people when you met them.
yeah,
And I didn't necessarily go to a lot of like the bigger ones. Like I was very careful with who I wanted to meet because of my social anxiety.
yeah,
But sort of like accidentally met the people that you'd already filtered for me.
yeah,
Like you'll know some of them. I wouldn't necessarily have been friends with, no offense to them, but I wouldn't have been friends with them through that forum.
no,
Our paths wouldn't have really crossed.
no.
But you
But then
sort of
we,
pre-vetted those people
yeah, I
for
mean, we afterwards, like when we got to being a little bit older and we started socializing, just the two of us, and then it just became the norm, and then the friendship circles that we have from that group are still like some of our main friendship circles now.
And do you know what it was that bonded us, I think, initially, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, it was like take that,
It was definitely Take That.
take that hyper focus basically that
Yeah, it was definitely Take That we first bonded over.
mm,
And then yeah, 100%. Because I was just starting to, because I was obviously very cool and edgy when I was 16. You can tell that by looking at me, I'm sure. I was very cool and edgy when I was 16, and I'd kind of denied all knowledge of my love of pop music until sort of maybe 3 or 4 years later, maybe when I was like 18, 19. That's not how maths works. But when I was like 18, 19, I'm doing well with maths today.
really showing off your math
I know,
skills.
totally am, yeah. A couple of years later, shall we say, when I was like 18, 19, and I realised that it was okay to like
Mm.
the music that I did. But I mean, yeah, we used to have Take That Sing Star nights and things, and it was a lot of fun. But there was no need to pretend, there was no need to be anyone other than who you were. And I suppose the concept of masking and unmasking at that time wasn't even a thing because we just
No, but I think
hid at school.
probably we could say that we unmasked most.
Yeah, in that place.
Oh, and sort of with the friendships that you
Yeah.
made in that place more so than you could
Because
have
you were already
worked.
unmasked before you met them. You just were who you were.
Yeah.
Um, and it made things a lot easier. Yeah. Don't even know where I'd be without it. Um, and it's not even worth thinking about, to be honest.
No, it's not. I think
Yeah.
for me, it was sort of I wasn't well, so I wasn't really at school, so I didn't really have a lot of opportunity to speak to a lot of people aside from being on that forum, and then obviously being able to go out and meet those people and have those experiences that I wouldn't have had
Yeah.
on my own. I did have a small group of friends when I went back to school who obviously it's a whole thing and it will all flock together sort of thing.
I always say like geese. I don't know why I use geese as an example, but
I mean geese, I think geese are quite that sort of animal, like
yeah,
they're a bit they don't really know what to do with themselves half the time, do they? So they just
maybe that's
and they
it.
don't always think about what they're doing, they just want that sandwich and that's the
Yeah.
same as me, really.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Maybe geese are actually autistic. So
Yeah.
yeah, so geese, we flock together like geese. So generally, if you've got unmasked neurodivergent people, their nearest and dearest will likely also be, or most commonly also be, potentially neurodivergent. Although obviously it's not in every situation. And neurodivergence, in my view, is very much you have to be ready to and interested in making a thing out of it and giving it a name, because some people don't want to and aren't interested, and that's completely okay.
I thought I was one of those people. I thought that it didn't really matter to me because I'd got as far as I'd got in my life without knowing for sure.
Yeah,
And what difference would it make?
yeah,
Um, and the difference it's made for me is knowing myself, not as much as being able to tell other people who I am. It's knowing myself and recognizing now some of the ways that that'll be the tism.
yeah, absolutely. And I know we've mentioned the word in our conversations before. We've mentioned the word validation quite often because I think, if I remember rightly, when you first started exploring diagnosis and I mentioned the word validation, you were like, it's not about validation, but actually it is partly about validating that it's okay to be who you are and that there's an explanation for these things that we struggle with. And it's a word that I use a lot, is it's not about diagnosis and stuff, is not about anyone else, it's about you being able to feel validated as you are and feel like, you know, believe that it's okay and accept that it's okay to be whoever you are. And
It's not knowing is sort of, for some people, not knowing a part of yourself fully.
Yeah.
But for some people,
it's just, for some people they're just different, they're just as they are, and it doesn't really make a difference whether that's their name or not.
And that's okay. Everybody's individual.
Yeah. You can't force it on somebody if they're not interested and they don't need it for them.
No.
Then it's not something that should be forced. And but coming back to the communities, you know, those neurodivergent communities are the best places for validation. I know when I first found out about ADHD, I joined a Facebook group for women with ADHD in the UK, like the day after, and someone was posting about how they'd bought their niece's birthday present on time and they were really, really proud of having bought it on time. And then it was 2 weeks later and they'd forgot to post it, and now her birthday present's late anyway. And I was just like, oh my God, I thought that was just me. And it's those kinds of things that make neurodivergent communities really, really important. And we'd already, with this forum that we were on, we'd already found a lot of people that did those things and that had similar traits to us before we knew they were even traits, and ways of communicating as us before we knew that it was a different way of communicating, you know. I thought I lived through most of my life until I found out about autism thinking that everybody recharged after nights out, because most of the friends that I was socializing with also did need to recharge after socializing. But that's a autistic trait, which I didn't realize. And that was a big eye opener for me. So I was like, what? Not everybody needs to do this? All right, okay, that's weird.
It's interesting though as well, going back to something that you know has helped you before in the community for trying to understand your ADHD and that you saying that now, that's exactly what I did. I got the diagnosis and I said to you, Emma, I don't know what I need to do with this now. Like what I've not actually thought about what happens if I am autistic, because I didn't think there wasn't any point in thinking about it until I needed to.
Yeah.
And my go-to was, let's find some podcasts, let's find some Facebook groups where I can join. And the amount of posts on Facebook groups that I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Do that. Even back to like childhood stuff. I sent my mum a thing and I'm like, it has always been a thing for me when I was little. I shuffled around on my bum. I didn't walk. I didn't crawl. I went straight from shuffling on my bum to standing up. And somebody had posted, "Oh, somebody's told me this is a neurodivergent thing. Is it a neurodivergent thing?" And I sent it to my mum, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this thing that is literally my like not first personality trait, but like it was in my first birthday card."
Oh, was
Someone, one of the neighbours wrote a poem about it. And some would say that I haven't used my legs very much since, but I don't shuffle around on the floor anymore.
Not often.
No.
Rarely.
But it's things like that. You realise that you're seeing somebody like yourself, and then they know how to deal with that, so you know how to deal with that. And I think part of the forum for us was that you could say, well, this has happened to me, or and
There was always
learn
somebody
the
there
way
that got it.
how to deal with that, learn the rules of like
Yeah.
of being sociable. And it wasn't, don't get me wrong, it wasn't everybody, was it?
No.
There were some people that just happened to be there for him.
Some people that just neurotypical just wandered in and, you know, made themselves part of the furniture. But yeah,
You know what, I'm here, whatever.
Yeah.
Accepting people
Yeah.
that maybe brought a little bit of that outside world to proceedings.
Yeah, that's true. But yes, so that's our main thing. That's our origin story. That's where we came from and how we know each other. And that was
Yeah.
24 years ago. We met 23 years ago.
Are you sure? When was
Yeah,
it?
it was 2002 where we met when we met.
Of course, I was thinking it was 20 years, but it's not. It's 20 years since I met
22
my
years,
husband.
23 years ago
Mm,
that we met now in a couple of months, which is mental. But there we go. Time is a wonderful thing.
yeah. And we just thought it'd be helpful maybe to know a bit about where we came from, but also it links into this entire thing really for us.
And as we said on the trailer, that's how we've been supporting each other with our own neurodivergence for 20 years, because since we met, that's what we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
We've accepted each other's different traits, and yeah, it's been mint. Right, so that's our main section.
Mm-hmm.
Our last section, we're just going to do a little bit about the trait of the week, and it's awkward, isn't it, this time, because it's not one that is even got a concise name. I have a list of traits, and this one isn't on it. But obviously I've decided to do one. You know, we're talking in the week about comfort things and things that bring us comfort. So I thought it would be a good idea for the trait of the week to be that we often have things that help us regulate.
Mm-hmm.
To have a safe item or a plush or a song or something that helps you to regulate is a neurodivergent trait in itself, because it's more common that we are dysregulated or anxious or overwhelmed. And it's really common for neurodivergent adults to have, for example, teddies around them. A lot of neurodivergent adults, especially autistic adults, to still have teddies and stuff in adulthood, and to still go to bed with a toy is quite a common autistic thing that people don't really talk about. So yeah, it's really common for neurodivergent adults to still like things such as plushes or have connections to toys, some that have grown up with them, some that they've had since childhood, or similar things that they've had since childhood. And like neurodivergent kids often have comfort blankets for a little bit longer, because it's just a safe.
A thing that brings that feeling back.
Yeah.
Is that the idea of it? Like, you know how you feel when you have that item or that thing. Because where this came about was, where this idea came from was I was going to a meeting that I was particularly anxious for, and the first song that came on the radio when I got into the car was a Take That song. We're not sponsored by Take That, but we wouldn't mind if we were.
Oh, if you're listening, Take That, please sponsor us. That would be
Yeah.
great. We'd love it.
Hit us up, Gary Barlow.
Yeah.
Love you long time. Yeah, cut that out.
I don't want to. I want to leave it in.
Oh, leave it in then.
Right.
These are the sort of things that I say. They're okay. So yeah, driving to work, Take That song. It was a radio that played 90s songs as well. So obviously that's a comfort thing for me, because that's where I go. If I'm having a bad day, I stick a 90s playlist on.
Yeah.
And I sent Emma a message when I got to where I was going saying, is this the tism? I need to know, because like instantly I've gone from being, don't get me wrong, I was still anxious, but just knowing that that song was the first one on, and the memories that we've had from that, and the way that it's made me feel, and the way that it regulates me, made me feel a little bit calmer, and it's like a reassuring that it was going to be all right.
Yeah. Take that exist, therefore everything will be fine. I think there was a sausage dog as well, wasn't there?
There was a sausage dog,
Yeah.
literally just as I was pulling into the car park. Yeah.
And it's kind of, because moving on from like, so it's physical things like plushies and teddies that give us comfort, like physically comfort, but also mental comfort. Most of my regulation happens with music. The other day I identified a song that used to regulate me when I was 16, and I'd never thought about it in that way before, in that I love this song because it used to help me regulate. If I was overwhelmed, if I was overstimulated, I could put a song on and listen to like a part of it. I like songs that you can pull apart in your head and then it fills different parts of your head. I know that sounds potentially strange, but if I'm listening to a song and I can identify the different instruments and the vocals, then it fills my head more. So it helps me regulate. And it's part of auditory synesthesia, which is a thing that I learned about quite recently that I experience. And it's just like it fills my head. Part of it is sensory, like the feel of certain things. And a lot of autistic people like plushies because of how squishy they are. And animals as well, and like the softness of animals. And animals can be a sensory stimuli.
I was gonna say, when you were talking about people still taking toys to bed, I don't do that, but I have got a toy that my dad got me when I was born that I've still got, and it's still sort of like, it makes me feel to see it, but equally, like, I do have a toy dog who is a real dog, a small dog that is in the bed with us, and I can't, when I've been on holiday and she's not been there, even though when she is there, she literally will take the entire bed up, even though she's 5 kilograms. When she's not there and she's not on me, or I don't know where she is, I feel worse for her not being there. So she almost regulates me by being there and she's like a weighted blanket.
Yeah, just a little sausage shaped one.
So yeah, I have a very strong emotional attachment to my dog child.
Yeah.
That will probably feature in further podcasts quite significantly. She's not here at the minute, but generally she's on my lap while I'm working because I need to know where she is. And it makes me feel calmer that she's there.
Yeah. So essentially Bern is a living plush.
Yes, she is.
There's a Cliff Richard song in there somewhere, but we're not gonna go
She's
there.
a living dog. Well, she is anyway. Copyright.
we're not gonna mess about with rights.
No. Not with Sir Cliff.
No, not with Sir Cliff. Although if you're listening to Cliff, hit us up.
Sponsor us, hit it up, big style.
I spent quite a lot of my childhood listening to Cliff Richard records.
Me and my sister did, because my mum, it was one of the few music acts that my mum was particularly fond of. So Summer Holiday was always on.
I love that. It's a proper tune, that.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of the albums. She'll be pleased to hear that we've mentioned Cliff Richard if she's got this far.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's it. We've got 3 sections. We're probably going to spend a little bit longer at the beginning section going forward, but because we were literally talking to each other yesterday and we spent about 40 minutes before we started recording having a catch up, we need to do some of the catching up part probably in the recording.
Well, some of it, yes, but some, yeah.
At the beginning. But yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapping up episode 1.
It seems like a good place to stop.
Yeah, please do let us know what you think of the podcast. You can email us at that'llbethetism@gmail.com if you would like to, because we now have an email address and an Apple account and a YouTube channel and an Instagram and all of the things, because we hyper-focused, as we have mentioned, and set everything up.
Yeah. It's on literally every podcast. Well, no, I'm not going to make that bold claim, but it's
on a lot of podcast things, and we are going to be adding more. And if you see this and want to listen to it, And if you've listened to it on a different provider, I know there's a few people that have said, I'm going to go to Spotify and listen to the podcast. You shouldn't have to do that. Let us know where you listen to your podcasts, and we should be able to get it on there.
Here's a poser for you before we finish. Then my friend has never listened to a podcast before,
Oh,
doesn't have Spotify, and doesn't have a podcast provider.
okay.
So I've just said, follow our Instagram, and then when we post an episode, we will link to the Spotify, and you don't need to be logged in to listen to Spotify.
Ah,
I don't think.
that's useful. And we're going to be on YouTube. This is going to be on YouTube. It's going to be a very interesting video. But I've not been paying attention, so who knows what we've done. I know we had a rave halfway through, but apart from that, I don't really know how many times I've waved my infinity cube out in front of my face and chewed on it and stuff.
Well, we've not done the fidgets.
Oh, yeah. Are we having a fidget of the week? We could have a fidget of the week.
Well, this is my fidget of the century.
Well, it's the only one you ever need, isn't it? Because it's immense. This is my one. This is a Lego infinity cube that we made. Somebody sent me a link to a video that, and we made it.
We're not
sponsored by Lego.
But if they want to get in touch.
But if you want to get in touch, then, you know, here we are. We're here. Hit us up. We are happy to be sponsored.
By Lego.
Not if anyone wants to sponsor. They'd have to be like morally sound people. If
there's a picture of something that you're affiliated with in our little profile picture, it's safe to say
we like you.
You can send us things.
Yeah. And if you're Sidehook there.
If Sidehook's
watching, I would love to hear from you because you're my favourite. And on that note,
like and subscribe.
Oh, we didn't do any threats. We didn't do any hollow threats if people didn't like and subscribe. That's what happens when on YouTubers that my son watches. They say halfway through, oh, the world's going to end if you don't like and subscribe to this video. Well,
this is not a threatening space.
We're not a threatening space.
If you would like to do that, then please feel free. However, if you don't want to do that, then never speak to us again.
But we would be grateful if you come back for episode 2 because it might be better.
It might be.
You never know.
You never know.
There is possible things. An ice cream van.
Can only get better. Not sponsored by D-Read. Do not copyright strikers.
Well, I think we should probably stop this. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, and we will be back in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thanks for listening.